You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. With me is Joe Zamataro and Matt Gannon. Guys, welcome back to the show. And boy, do we have an interesting week to talk about. A lot of crazy things happening over the course of these last 3 games. We'll get into it all right here. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on these future episodes. But first and foremost, guys, how you doing today? And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, buddy. Excited to get into this. There's so much that's going to be going on. We usually record these at about 6 o'clock. We got the recording of this going on. We then have the Lightning game to watch afterwards. And then, guys, I got a game at 11 o'clock tonight. It starts at 11.
Ooh, that's a late one.
You got a busy schedule for you, Joe. Yeah, I think we're all really excited to get into this episode today. It was kind of a weird week overall. Again, Happy New Year to everybody. But yeah, I guess we got a couple pressing issues I think we're all kind of giddy to talk about.
We're going to recap it all. We'll look at all the games. We'll take a look at the upcoming schedule and talk about our 3 stars as always. But first, right off the bat, we're going to jump to the Montreal game, which was the most recent game that happened, because we have to talk about the allowed goal, but questionable, crazy, however you want to describe it. So basically, if you missed it, which I'm not even sure how you would have missed it, but if you did, the Canadiens scored a goal in the second period in which the stop was a goalie made the stop, held onto the puck, lights came on, music was playing on the arena, everybody just kind of stopped, and then next thing you know, the puck's in the back of the net, and Johansson's off in the corner, as goalies, will typically skate out to the corner and just kind of take a little skate break when there's a whistle or stoppage of play, but the puck ends in the back of the net, and it's called a good goal. Everybody's shocked. Nobody knows what's going on. It's reviewed. They come back out and say that, yeah, that was a goal. There was no stoppage, and then for the next entirety of the second period and a little bit into the third period too, Amalie Arena was raining down with booze and refuse suck chants. I don't think I've ever heard it that loud for those, but it was unbelievable. Joe and myself were at the game, and so we heard it firsthand. It's really kind of hard to wrap your head around it. So we'll start off before we get into the nitty gritty of was it a goal, shouldn't have been disallowed. Joe, what were your thoughts when that play happened?
I mean, I've never seen something like that transpire. They say that there weren't any Lightning players around, but I think it was point that was around the circle, the face-off dot next to the Montreal goaltender, and there's 1 or 2 other guys that were in the zone too. But to not blow it dead when the goalie has it suffocated, I mean, it was like in his gut, and he's in the
Mississippi at least.
Yeah, what do you call that in yoga? The child's pose, where he's completely on his knees and then just bent over, covering in the puck. I've never seen him force the goalie to play it. That was insane. And then to add to it, if you're a Lightning player, all of a sudden, like you said, the lights change, the music comes on because it was supposed to go to a TV timeout on the next stoppage.
I mean, everybody on the Lightning ready for that to be a whistle, but so was everybody on the Canadiens. Even Sam Montembeault, it seemed like he was looking for a whistle there. He wasn't really trying to play it, and the refs kind of allowed him to play the puck. Like at the end of the day, especially because we won the game, it's just flat out funny to me. Like, I was head in my hands like, what the heck just happened? And I'm sure just all the air got sucked out of the arena. Like, just How funny is that? There's been some really interesting goals at Amalie Arena this year, but yeah, it caught everybody off guard. Go.
I gotta say that it didn't suck the air out of the
Yeah,
place.
it put
The place
more into the arena.
exploded.
I'll
I mean, I've never heard a "ref you suck" chant quite like the one that was going off that night, because it continued for like minutes, and then it restarted in the third when the refs came out onto the ice before all the players. It energized the hell out of the crowd, and I think the players too.
The
I would
Lightning
hope
scored a
so.
goal, and then even after the goal, the cheers started to die down, and the "ref you suck" chants came back. Like that's how it was insane. It went through the entire period. It never
So
stopped.
I do want to clarify a couple of things. They're saying that it was reviewed. Apparently, it was Kelly Sutherland that made the call. Apparently, he went over to the penalty box area because that's where he gets communication to Toronto. And he was there not because of it just being a standard review, like all goals get reviewed, but he went over there explicitly to tell them that, hey, I did not blow this whistle. The play was live. And unfortunately, this is almost like a perfect storm, I feel. By the rules, if the goaltender is able to play it and is not pressured, he is compelled to do so. It's not that he was given a choice. He's forced to do so, or it's a delay a game. The fact that Kelly Sutherland gave him that opportunity to play it, or told him to play it after it was in his gut for seconds, and no one, I guess, got close enough for Kelly Sutherland to blow the whistle. You could see he's got this whistle like up to his mouth. Everyone peels off. He says, "Play it," and so Montembeault had to. And then at that point, all the lights come on. But they teach you, it's like one of the first things that they teach you when you're a kid playing hockey. You play till the whistle. And I mean, I guess they took the cue of the sound going on or the like the music playing as their that the play was dead. But man, what a perfect storm to make just like a terrible, not top 10 highlight.
I mean, part of that's also kind of on the in-arena DJ too. Like, you kind of have to wait for the whistle or wait for, a signal for a referee or something like that, right? Like, that was definitely a bit premature. I think it definitely played into the part of Johansson going for a skate and everybody just thinking the play is over. But yeah, at the end of the day, do play till the whistle. But I do put just a tiny little the DJ there. Like, wait till you hear the whistle too, man.
But I mean, if it's loud, you might not be able to hear it. And if if it was a stoppage, he had the whistle to his mouth, and you're looking for a visual cue. I'm actually pretty sure that the person that does that is up in the press box too. And I know at least that's where like the NHL has their person to stop and start the feeds. So they might not be able to hear it regularly, and that's such a common play to blow dead with the way that it looked. I mean, there's a couple of strange calls. I'm not going to say that Sutherland is on the take or has money on the game, but that's a rough one if you're a fan to watch.
Well, so a couple of things for me, right? I feel the worst for Johansson, who, sometimes those whistles are hard to hear. As you mentioned, Joe, it can be loud in there. And Johansson's on the other end of the ice. So he hears the music, the lights are on. He sees everybody kind of stop, and his teammates are going to the bench. He's like, all right, play's over.
Montreal teammates were going to the bench.
Yeah, everybody was done. And if you watch the replay too, you can see Sutherland, he's got the whistle in his mouth. He's ready to blow it. And then he very subtly just with his arm up a little bit, just kind of gives a quick little, like he doesn't, I don't know if he said anything or if he very subtly just kind of rolls his fingers saying, hey, play the puck. And you're right, Joe. I looked up the rule. I was trying to look all over for an official rule. It's kind of a weird gray area too, because you're right. If the goalie has a chance to play the puck and they don't, it's technically a penalty. But refs never call this. Usually when a goalie holds it and everybody they blow this dead. But for whatever reason, Sutherland said, nope, we're going to play it. And once Montreal, and credit to Montreal, once they realized, oh, play's still happening, they took advantage of it. It's nothing that Montreal did wrong. And it is a goal by correctly called, but it's just a question of why was this not blown dead? I don't think anybody has got that figured out.
And I've seen people, blaming Johansson for coming out of the net. But you have to understand when you're a goalie, you're that far away. Again, when it's loud, you might not see or hear a whistle. You're just looking for the visual. All of a sudden, music comes on. The red light above the scorekeepers area to signify that they're going to a TV timeout came on. I remember seeing that distinctly because I was kind of sitting behind the net at that time. And when you're a goalie, if you take a little skate to the corner, you get a nice little breeze, you get some fresh air, and the ability to kind of stretch your legs a little bit. So they take those little chances. So it's very normal for a goalie to skate over to the corner and not have a clue that that's happening. I mean, we've probably all seen it when we were first starting to watch hockey. Like, what's he doing? He's not in front of the net. But that's the only time I've ever seen it really burn somebody like this.
The one good thing that came out of it, though, was definitely all the boos, and it was hilarious to me watching that. I mean, it really did fire up the crowd. They were furious with that.
You know, it's kind of funny is that there was a penalty taken by Montreal. I think it was like in the third. I can't remember what the actual penalty was, and all the Montreal fans that were in town started booing the refs too. So we're all unified against
both sides.
All unified against the Zebras for a moment there.
I heard the officials were booing the refs even after that goal call when they said that the play was still live. Like, everybody was confused. It wasn't just Lightning fans. It was a crazy moment. But Matt, it's like you said, they did end up winning the game, so it just kind of becomes a little bit more of a moot point. But there is something else that happened in that Montreal game that we need to talk about, and that's the hit on Erik Cernak. Now, I was down towards that end of the arena, and I was right in front of – I was on the glass for that game. And so it happened a couple feet away from me, and Cernak got decked. I mean, he just got absolutely lit up and was immediately on the ground. And Tom Mulligan, who's the head athletic trainer for the Lightning, had to come out and check him out. And I didn't see – now, if you watch the replay, you can clearly see him go up, and he eventually does leave his feet on that hit. I couldn't see it because it was behind the net. But Cernak down and out. He's only day-to-day, though, which I think is a positive sign. I thought it would have been a lot worse. But Cernak injured on the play, and they end up calling, I think it was, 2 minutes for charging, 5 minutes for fighting. And then the Lightning also got 2 minutes for instigating, 5 minutes for fighting, and a 10-minute game misconduct. And there goes that 2-minute instigator penalty again, which I personally cannot stand.
Worst
I know they're
rule in
trying to do
hockey.
it. It's awful because I know they're trying. They don't want as many fights in the game. They're trying to get rid of that a little bit, but it's not going to do anything. Guys are going to stand up for their guys. When you watch your teammate get lit up and they leave their feet, you're going after the guy. And to get a 2-minute instigator penalty for that is, in my personal opinion, completely wrong. Again, the Lightning, they end up winning this game. It's not a point of, oh, it's a bad call. It's the reason why, it was a bad game for us. No. It's a wrong call, and the Lightning should not be penalized for that. And also, how is that only 2 minutes for Montreal?
Yeah, I mean, Cernak got hit 3 times on that. He hit Josh Anderson, he hit the boards, and he hit the ice. That was one of the heaviest collisions I've seen this season for one of our guys. And I mean, I guess Cernak had his head down for it. As he's coming around behind the net, he misplayed the puck, and he saw Anderson at like the last moment coming at him. But he still was kind of leading with his head, and put himself in a really, really vulnerable position. I guess maybe because he was so vulnerable and because he technically didn't play the puck, that's why they gave it a charge. Because if you look at Anderson, he wasn't skating through the hit. It wasn't like he was continuing to accelerate that whole way, which is a traditional charge. But it was brutal. And as for the extra time for the instigator penalty, I think one of the reasons that they have that rule is really just to prevent guys that lay a clean big hit from instantly having to defend themselves. In this case, obviously, it was clean, or it was a legal hit for the most part. He didn't get a major for it, but a lot of times, it's one that'll be a big hit, completely clean, and then now all of a sudden there's a fight, and that's what they're trying to get out of the game. So they kind of got to rule them the same way.
Did Cernak take a page out of the Eric Lindros book of hockey on how to keep your head down, or is he just or do people just dislike him that much that they go for it? I think it's like a little bit of a mix of both. Like, he does play with his head down a good bit. It seems to happen to him like at least a couple times a year. Going back to the playoffs last year, he puts himself in another vulnerable spot. And yeah, they did call it a charge, but did he really leave his feet, or did he just kind of jump to his normal height? Because Anderson, he was at that angle. He was kind of squatted down. I couldn't really tell if he left his feet or if he just kind of jumped into his normal stance there. But regardless, I didn't like the hit. Good on Luke for just immediately, instinctually drop away. He's, Luke Glendening, he's not big at all. He plays huge, but he's
Well, he
given
gave
up,
up massive amount of size there.
he gave up, 5-6 inches to him or something. Anderson can chuck him and he can throw him. I didn't like that hit. It's not that it's cool that you got to see that, Jake, being right up close for that, right on the glass. Like, unbiased, it's kind of cool to see that way up close. But I don't know. I didn't really like the hit. I don't understand. Can either of you guys explain to me why Glendening got 10 minutes for that? Why he got a misconduct? I understand the 5. I understand
it's a
the 2.
misconduct.
The 10.
He probably said something. He probably said something that you're not allowed to say on the ice.
To who? The ref? To Anderson?
Like to Anderson is what I'm guessing. Like that's probably what it was.
I can't imagine what he would have been saying in the heat of the moment. Anything to get him an extra 10. I can't imagine.
No one
that.
says anything inappropriate when you're heated like that.
Exactly, but how much of that stuff does get said, on a day-to-day basis, even for small stuff like that. You can only imagine the amount of F-bombs, F-U's, this and that getting thrown around, just in the midst of a game, small, just little tiny shoulder checks. I don't understand why he got an extra 10. I can't imagine he said something so abhorrent, horrible that, to deserve an extra 10. That's the most baffling part to me out of the whole scenario.
Surprised they didn't give the fans a 10 minutes conduct for booing them the entire second period into the third.
But yeah, Anderson definitely did not jump into the head of Chernak. I saw the replay multiple times, and there's a lot of people on Facebook and that in some of those Bolt groups that are very passionate fans, and I love it.
Good way to describe it.
Yeah, and it's great that they're watching and analyzing and learning. But so many people have shown just the screenshot of Anderson off the ice, like he's elevated off the ice, but the initial point of contact, he's low on his skates, and he accelerates through the hit. You push into the hit, and then the momentum just takes you continuing to go up into the air, and that's what happened. It wasn't like he jumped at Chernak's head to make his elbow the same height as it. He pressed into his check, and with that much force, and both of them having the majority of their mass up high, it's gonna just kind of bring them both up no matter what. So it wasn't like he was completely trying to do him dirty.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it obviously looks a lot worse when the player is immediately down on the ice and injured, and that can play a big factor into it too.
That was the thing that I was curious about. Why wouldn't it be a 5-minute penalty if he was penalized and it resulted in an injury? So I was always under the understanding that if you injure a player while committing a penalty, especially in a case like this where he's not coming back, that should be a full 5-minute power play.
See, I don't know. I've looked at the rule books before, and it's a very long rule book. If anyone out there is actually, you can go download it online and find it. But I don't think there's anything specifically about injuries in 5 minutes. I believe they did call it a 5-minute major initially, correct? And then they reviewed it and then took it back down.
They're gonna make it targeting, which would have ejected him from the game, and would have been instantly supplemental disciplinary hearing.
And with them calling 5 minutes, that gives them the ability. So I do like that call, even though it did end up kind of biting us. I would have been happier with the 5, but it just gives them the ability to review that. They'll do that with a lot of big hits where a guy is down. They'll make it a major just so they can take an extra look at it too.
We'd love to hear from our fans as well. Let us know what you guys think on this disallowed goal, the hit. Do you think it was a bad hit? Was it the right call? We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it as well. Let's get to some of the game recaps and talk about what the Lightning did in these 3 games. It was a very interesting week overall, though, but we wanted to get to some of those controversial or just outright funny, honestly, with the goal and talk about that first. So first game we got to look at is the Florida Panthers game. This was one of the ones we said, guys, last week that this was a big game for the Bolts because it is a divisional opponent. The Lightning were right behind the Florida Panthers. They've got Lightning of games, or they don't have games in hand. They're ahead of everybody right now. So it was really big for the points. Unfortunately, the Lightning cannot get the job done. They lose by a final score of 3-2 in this game. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it felt like, they had some momentum at certain points of the game and they were not playing particularly bad, but they could not get any shots to go in the back of the net, and often mistakes that they made would end up in the back of theirs. So just, it wasn't a bad game, but the final score obviously doesn't help, and they end up losing 3-2, and it's a big 2-point swing.
I can't really get too angry at this game. I will say Bobrovsky played a really good game. He stoned a lot of these guys, and especially Braden Point. I think he had a breakaway. He made an incredible save on. Bobrovsky played great. The Panthers, they really played really good hockey. I think they did a good job of shutting the top guys down and really limiting chances. They'd get a couple here and there, but it really came down to Bobrovsky being the better goalie and just stonewalling everybody. I'm not unhappy with the result. There definitely could have been a better effort, but I don't know. It was a well-played game. The first game after Christmas, after the Christmas break, you can kind of hangover or something like that, but I think I might be a little less angry about this game because I was, violently angry about the next game we're going to cover, so I might be giving this one a bit of a pass. That might be what's going on. But I don't think it was just that terrible of a game overall. Unfortunate with the result, but again, just, to put it simply, better goalie at one end.
Yeah, and that was apparent for the third goal by the Panthers, where Reinhart, shorthanded, beat Hedman to get across the crease, and then I don't know what Vasi was doing on this one. He was so low, and usually when he gets low like that, it's because there's a screen, but it's not like there was a screen that he's trying to look around. He got so low, and then Reinhart he put that thing top corner, absolute sniped it, and Hedman couldn't get to it because he was in a really strange position. But did I say Hedman or say Vasi? Vasi couldn't get to it because he was in a really strange position, and Hedman didn't do enough to take the body from Reinhart to prevent him from getting a scoring chance. I think like that combination really let the team down because they were having a lot of momentum trying to get back into this game up until that goal.
Yeah, they started to play really well, especially in that late second period and some of the third as well. But that shorthanded goal was one that, as you mentioned, really killed a lot of their momentum and was one of the biggest factors, I think, in that loss to the Florida Panthers. But it's this loss stings a lot more because it's a divisional opponent. It was a big win for points wise because in a very tight Atlantic division as well. Like there are a lot of teams right here neck and neck fighting for these wild card spots in the whole Eastern Conference, I should really say. Let's go on to the next game though against the New York Rangers, which honestly felt more of the same. The Lightning, they get off to a rough start with the Rangers going up 2-0. The Lightning, though, they fight their way back. They keep pushing. They get a lot of chances, but every mistake they made was a costly one that ended up in the back of their net. And then even when they did have chances, they were not getting any puck luck in this game either. So again, you're watching this game overall as a whole, and it doesn't seem awful, but the mistakes that they're making are costly ones. And I think that's the big thing from this game. There was a disallowed goal in this, which I know Matt's going to get to, so I'll let him get to that in a moment here. Joe, I'll start with you, though, your thoughts on this game against the Rangers.
I mean, you said it pretty well. Just the opportunities that the Rangers had, they were burying. And, the Lightning outshot them, especially in that first period. It was 14-9, the Lightning outshot them. The second period was 13-5. They were definitely getting their chances. It just wasn't seeming to go their way for so much of it, which is frustrating because it looked like a team that was doing everything right and just not really getting rewarded for it. That once again, though, we had another goal that Vasi allowed, where it's almost the exact same thing as the Reinhart goal, except for instead of being too low, he stood up awkwardly and allowed one to go by him, and that I think was like the nail in the coffin for that game too.
Vasi did not have a good game in this one at all. I hate to criticize Vasi. I know Joe hates it even more, but I don't think he was, really. He was not his best this game, but I thought the team as a whole, they played really well. The few mistakes that got through everybody and into the net. They were, pretty mistakes. Like the Hedman-Perbix pair, they were on for I think 4 of the 5 goals. Like they just looked kind of lost out there and just pretty rough. But yeah, Vasilevsky, he had to have a couple. The first goal was kind of unfortunate, and the 5th goal, the hat trick goal, that one was even the most unfortunate. Vinny Trocheck with 4 points that night, he just ate us alive. He had like primary assists on all those goals, or at least like 3 of the 4 of them. Oh, he was just eating us alive. But again, I think if you put this game into a simulator and you replay this game 1,000 times, the Lightning win this game 700 of them. Like it just really, every small mistake would turn into a 2-on-1 or a breakaway against or something. Really small things that turn into much bigger issues, especially because Vasilevsky, he couldn't be the guy to bail us out this game. And I guess, it's fine. He can take a night off every now and again, but not when you've got the New York Rangers in the building, and especially all their fans that started chanting, Igor. I can't tell you how much that just ate me alive. I hate that. And the officiating in this game was not on our side. I was yelling at the refs. I was yelling at my TV. Like, there were a couple of shoddy calls here and there, but I still cannot understand why that was called back. Why the
Eyssimont.
who scored it? Was it Eyssimont? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, why that goal was called back. Any of you guys help me?
No, because I don't know why it was called back either. I mean, there was contact in the crease initially, but there's, he's getting, I forget who it was that made the.
It was Jeannot.
Jeannot, correct. Jeannot was getting pushed into Shesterkin, and even if you say, okay, fine, there's contact in the crease, but that's not when the goal is scored. The shot goes wide. Shesterkin goes way out of his net on his own accord, all by himself, and then Eyssimont comes around on the wraparound, and that's when he scores. So the contact had absolutely nothing to do with the goal. And, again, I hate blaming the officials. I hate, listen, the Lightning they made huge mistakes in this game. That's why they lost this game. But that was a big momentum killer for the Lightning. They were starting to mount a little bit of a comeback at that point. And there is, to me, no reason that goal should have been allowed.
Yeah, so I mean, what I saw from that is that maybe you could say that Jeannot did not try hard enough to get back into or get out of the crease.
No,
because he was down on one knee.
Can't say that.
He wasn't. Well, I mean, he wasn't fighting as hard as he could to get back out of the crease. He just straight up wasn't, which I mean, I don't know if that's enough. And maybe he barely touched Shesterkin on his try to get back across for the wraparound. I mean, I definitely am glad it wasn't called as a penalty, but if you touch him as he's going across, I kind of understand. I don't think that it was enough, but that's the only thing I could possibly think of, why they would call that.
The reason you can't say Jeannot wasn't trying to get out of the crease is because the penalty that was called on that play was a hooking against Mika Zibanejad on Tanner Jeannot. He inhibited his ability to get out of the crease, to get out of the way. That's why when the goal was disallowed, the penalty was still called because that happened before the goal went in. That's what the penalty was. So he couldn't get out of the way even if he tried. I'm sure if he really, really wanted to, he could have got out of the way. He could have used his skates, but he was hooked or held or whatever they ended up calling on that play.
What put him into the crease was the hook is what put him into the crease.
I thought it was what was preventing him from. Regardless, I don't understand. The goalie had way too much. He had plenty of time to recover. Jeannot was not impeding the goalie's ability to get back and make the save. Just because Igor went right and had trouble getting back to his left because he went so far right is nothing to do with Tanner Jeannot. That's what that is the hill that I'm dying on.
Right, that's the questionable part is when he goes out of his net on his own. It's like, well, wait a minute, he did that. Jeannot wasn't even want to say, okay, there's contact from Jeannot.
I think it's when he tried coming back around. It's
right.
When he not when he went out of his net on his own. It's when he was trying to dive back across the crease. He made a slight amount of contact with Jeannot, which
because Zibanejad was
out their microscopes. It was Shesterkin's birthday, so maybe they just wanted to give him a late birthday present for that one. I don't know. At the end of the day, again, that was not the reason the Lightning lost the game. Frustrating though, as we saw multiple times this week with some of the just crazy, ridiculous calls that we've seen. But
I say they're already down 2 goals at that point.
Right. And, you were able to score one. It would have been a 1-goal game, and it would have been a huge help for the Lightning. They do eventually score and make it 2-1. But it could have been 2-2 by that point. So it's a big momentum swinger, and that's the big thing. And momentum matters a lot in these games. But end of the day, the call is what it is. The Lightning made some costly mistakes, and they lose that game. So they're going into a second half of back-to-back, the last game of 2023, with having lost 2 straight games, needing some kind of points. And that's when the craziness happens with the Montreal game, which, as you guys know, we just talked about with the allowed, questionable, not blown dead play. But the Lightning do come out on top in this game. They get the win against the Montreal Canadiens by a final score of 4-3 because the hit and the the goal. I don't want to say no goal or goal, but the no whistle. We'll say the hit and the no whistle.
The empty netter.
Right, the empty netter.
The whistle unheard around the world.
The whistle, I like that. The whistle unheard around the world. But that seemed to spark something in the Lightning, and they fight all the way back. They tie the game in the second period. They eventually win by a final score of 4-3, and they get a big 2 points, a win that I felt like was much needed for the Lightning.
Yeah, and I can't remember the last time I saw the guys so pissed off in a game. They really did battle back hard, and I mean, I think Hedman attempted more hits in this game than he has like all season combined. He was really going out there and trying to lay some wood physically.
I'm glad you guys noticed that because Hedman, he's had much to be desired from his defensive game this year, and he just, he does never hits guys unless it's his own teammates or former teammates. He really doesn't like to hit guys. But no, I noticed a little bit of that from him too. But definitely the first, 30 minutes of this game, pretty much until that, empty net goal went in, was just it was pathetic to watch. I mean, I don't know if it was kind of the same, feeling in the building, but it was sad when I looked up at the TV screen. Actually, I had this out on the projector out back when I saw, what was it? Pretty much 25 minutes into the game, we had 4 or 5 shots like that. There was just nothing going on. It was just, I don't know. And the thing is, after the end of the game, when we won, the best I was watching it with could describe that win was, I guess, like, I don't know. They were only in it for half the time. They seemed kind of, disinterested for half of it. Even when they were playing their best parts in the second half of the game, it was just kind of, well, I guess Braden Point just scored that breakaway goal. I guess Nikita Kucherov snuck his way over there. It was just kind of, it didn't really seem like that same kind of clawing back, getting back into the fight. Of course, they had a burr in their saddle. Of course, they were PO'd, but a lot of it did seem, lucky's definitely not the word. That Austin Watson goal, that was lucky. Boy, I still do love Austin Watson. He's just a beauty, but I guess was just kind of the best way I can put this game. It was just the most kind of game. That's the best way I can put it.
Well, I mean, I have a feeling that some of that has to do also with what was put on the shoulders of the defensemen because they were only playing with 4 guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Radish, 24 minutes. Perbix, 25 minutes. Hedman, 29 minutes, 52 seconds worth of ice time. And that's gonna kind of impact your ability to generate offense because you're really gonna save yourself to make sure you're not defensively liable for anything. But I mean, the rest of the guys too. I think that they did push. They did a decent job. And I know that the Watson goal was fluky, but I mean that's just 1 for 1, right? And,
yeah.
The rest of it, I had a feeling, man. I said after that one was the non-whistle, I'm like, they're going to come back. I have a feeling they're going to come back and definitely win this game.
Hey, sometimes you got to be good to be lucky, and that's kind of what happened for the Lightning. They started to play better, and they got a couple lucky bounces their way. Finally, after 2 games we just talked about where they weren't getting any of those bounces before. Matt, I think it's very different. You're right. When you're watching on TV, you can see a lot more usually. In the game is very different. I didn't think they played awful. They definitely didn't play great early in that game. There's no question about that. But they had a couple of chances. They fell behind, obviously, with those tough goals in that second period. But again, I didn't think they were playing awful. And then a fight, well, not a fight, a fight and is what sparked them again. We saw that happen in the Vegas game. The Vegas game was a little bit different because you had some more goal scoring and more opportunities in that game early. But 2 times fights have ignited this team and got them right where they needed to be. And if that's what it takes sometimes, that's what it takes sometimes. It's not necessarily a bad, obviously you don't want that to be the case every single night, which sometimes it's felt like maybe, but Joe, we talked about this when we were at the game, we met up there a little bit. It just seems like the Lightning it's just inconsistency. And that's what's hurting them a lot overall here is that one day you're looking at them and they're saying, or just in the game alone, you look at the second and the third period, like, wow, they played great. They played their hardest. They were down defensemen. They came back in that game. And then you look at the first period, it's like, I didn't play that great. They just haven't been able to find consistency throughout this whole week. Would you guys agree with that?
I'd say it's
Absolutely.
definitely fair. I mean, this week, they played decently well. They just didn't get the bounces that they needed, or the other team capitalized and were opportunistic where the Lightning weren't. But they didn't play horrible overall. They just didn't get the results that they were looking for. I mean, one thing that they did do horribly in this game against Montreal was their face-off percentage was abysmal. It was 67.3% for Montreal, which is going to give somewhat of a picture showing that Montreal is controlling the game just because they're controlling the puck more off those draws. But that outside from kind of a flat first period there, I think that they played decently well all week. They're just not getting the points that they desperately need.
And I do have to mention, I had this game out on my projector. I put it in the yard. I had some people over. We were doing a New Year's party at my house. Nice. And boy, I was doing it via my iPad to the projector, and I get the notifications from our chat, and they were lining up perfectly with what was happening because you guys were, a minute or so ahead of the feed I was getting. It was, Michael and Jake and Joe just talking about exactly what was happening. You had a bunch of your commentary. I just had to let you guys know that it was just on point. It was perfect.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, the Lightning's play may have been a little inconsistent this week and they haven't been able to find that consistency, but I'll tell you what is consistent, guys. The amazing merch we've got over on shop.rblrsports.com, and you can check out all the other team-inspired merch from the Lightning, the Rays, the Rowdies, the Bucks over there. And the best part is for you guys, our listeners right here, we'll give you an exclusive code. You can use code BOLTS to get 10% off your order. Go over there, shop.rblrsports.com. Links, as always, are in the description to go check out some of the awesome merchandise we have over there. All right, it's time to do our 3 stars of the week. This week was a little tough because, even though we kind of mentioned the play was, not awful, but it wasn't great. It was hard to pick an easy 3 stars this week. But I think we found 3 good ones. And we'll start off with our number 3 star. He got on the goal sheet for his first one this season, a guy who came over for us this year, and it's Calvin Haan. So Haan gets his first goal of the year in that Montreal game, scores a big one. I love that picture down below. We're looking at him right now. And for those not listening on YouTube, be sure to head over to YouTube and subscribe so you don't miss out on these videos. But Haan, he gets his first goal of the season and our 3rd star of the week. Joe, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on his play? Joe, I think you might be muted.
Oh, appreciate it. It was a great job of him jumping into the play in order to get his goal. It was one that, saw, I think, Kucherov and Point and someone else, maybe Sorelli, all touch the puck. And for him to be able to get a goal off those guys, he's in a good position for it. The rest of the week, he was also playing pretty well, where against the Rangers, he was a -1, all things considered, and even in the Panthers game. So he's been pretty consistent. And once you start getting really shorthanded with defensemen, it's nice having them out there to be able to soak up some minutes and do it scoring goals too.
And what's my favorite kind of, bottom pair defenseman is the guy I just don't talk about. Talking about Calvin Haan, because he just quietly does his job. Like, he's really not somebody I point fingers at. He just does his job, boxes guys out, keeps his game simple. There's a reason why, he's been in the league for so long, not being, a star name or anything like that. It's just because he just kind of shuts up and does his job. And he was just sitting in the right place in the right time. He got a great shot off. I was definitely surprised about how that went into the net. It was a heavily screened shot. He had like 3 or 4 guys in front of it. It was a perfect placement shot. And boy, is that what the doctor ordered. That's what gave that building, like, the roof blew off at that point. I can only imagine what it was like, to be in the arena for that goal, but it must have been pretty spectacular. I know Dave Mishkin, though. But Calvin Haan is just a guy that I really like on a personal level. He's a guy that, I've always kind of appreciated never being on my team. Like, he's just a good guy. So, I'm happy to see that he's, filling in as the sixth defenseman, really well. Just quiet, consistent, does his job, and gets us. I guess it wasn't the game-winning goal, but it was a crucial goal in that game. It was the tiebreaker late in the game. Man, he had a really good week. So, props to you, Cal.
He's going to end up being the fifth defenseman tonight.
Oh.
We'll get to that because the Lightning are down defensemen right now. So I will say this too. Eric Chernak, I think it was Chernak. I don't remember when exactly it was, but he had a similar chance where he was wide open and then fanned on it. Haan, I was thinking the same thing when he got I'm like, please nail this one. You got a wide open, and he did. So it was a great shot from him. Really happy for him to get the goal, and he gets the third star of the week here. So let's go to the number 2 star. It's a guy who on the stat sheet only has 1 goal, even though he really deserves 2, and that's Mikey Eyssimont. Eyssimont is one of my favorite players. We talk about a lot of the hard workers we have, like Brandon Hagel, formerly Yanni Gourde, and Mikey Eyssimont is another one of those guys that is just all over the ice with so much speed, always fighting for that puck, and he's not afraid to drop the gloves with anybody. So he gets our 2nd star of the week. Matt, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on Eyssimont's play?
Oh God, just like finding words with this guy, like finding words for Eyssimont, just honey badger, buzzsaw, all the buzzwords that I use to describe the guy. I mean, he's just Yanni Gourde light. There's another one, so I need to break out my dictionary and figure out some new words. But man, yeah, he's just a guy that you can always count on to bring some energy to the lineup. He's a guy like if the game is a little sleepy, if the guys aren't, playing up to caliber, he's a guy that can get out there and inject some life into the team. He'll throw a hit. He'll fight somebody. He can pot a dirty, nasty goal. Like, all his goals are pretty greasy goals, and they're goals you got to work for. Really should have 2 goals, but again, he's just always really noticeable wherever he is with the very, very limited amount of ice time and he certainly did in pretty much all these games this week. He was just, again, every time he's out there, you notice him doing something.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect way to describe him, someone that comes in there with energy. And even when the team's struggling, he's always spinning his wheels and, just going as hard as he can every opportunity he gets. It's unfortunately he had the goal called back on him so we could brag about more of what his play has done statistically. But sometimes there's guys that they're not going to show up on the stat sheet, but they really do change the face of how the game is played. Actually, a good example of that is Maroon when he came to the team originally. He's not someone that's going to show up on the stat sheet, but he always gave the guys a boost and kept them level-headed on the bench. And Eysimont's someone that's out there setting the example by giving it his all every shift. So one of those hard workers that deserves some recognition.
Absolutely, and that's why he gets the 2nd star of the week for us. All right, going to the number 1 star now. It's a guy who only played 1 game this week, but he was solid in that game he played, and that's Johansson. He gets the win for the only win this week against the Montreal Canadiens. And even though on the stat sheet, again, it was 3 goals allowed, not all of them obviously on his fault, especially the non-whistle heard around the world. But overall, some solid play from Jonas Johansson, who hasn't played a lot. He played 1 game earlier, I think it was December 7th against the Nashville Predators, and then hadn't played because Vasilevsky took over the net. But he comes back and is transitioning, I would say, very nicely into that backup role position. Joe, your thoughts on Jonas Johansson?
Yeah, again, if you take away that goal, you could also really look at the other 2 that he let in that game that were just not really his fault. One was a Stamkos turnover in the crease, essentially, that allowed one of the Panthers or one of the Montreal players to score. And then the other one was a deflected shot that went to the side of the net, and Suzuki sniped one top shelf. But he made all the saves he was supposed to make to keep the Bolts in it. And great seeing him get a win when he's getting his limited net time.
He made all the saves he needed to, and the ones that he shouldn't have saved too. Like, he kept us in that. Like, there were a couple of chances where he was out there kind of swimming in the net. Like, he was scrambling, and there were a couple of times where I said, how did that not go in? Or I thought that went in or something like that. He really saved our bacon that game. And all three of those goals, you can't, like you said, Joe, you can't pin any of them on there on Johansson for that. Like the Stamkos turnover right in the slot, Cole Caulfield is burying that 101 times out of 100. Like he's just a great shooter like that. And the Nick Suzuki shot, that's just as perfect of a shot as you can make. It's just kind of a broken play that ended up perfectly on his stick. And the no whistle heard around the world, not heard around the world. That's just an anomaly in and of itself. So again, he was pretty much, he wasn't perfect, but he was, as good as a goalie could be. He was exactly, what we needed him to be. He saved our bacon a couple of times. I definitely think he's very deserving of this, first star this week, especially because, we always gave Brian Elliott credit, the last 2 years. It's not easy to play behind Andrei Vasilevsky. You're playing, every 2 weeks, sometimes every 3 weeks, especially what did you say his last start was? December 7th?
Predators, like the first week of December. He played twice this month.
That's pretty much 3 weeks right there. So, it's not easy to do to be that cold and come into a game and play that well. So, props to Jonas Johansson.
And that's why he gets the first star of the week. We'd love to hear from your thoughts again, guys. If you have any different stars or if you agree with us, let us know at RBR Lightning or at RBLR Sports. We just hit 800 followers over on Twitter as well, so make sure you come join everybody and it's following us here at RBLR Sports. All right, let's take a look at the week ahead for the Lightning. We've got a 3-game road trip for the Bolts this week, starting off with the game tonight as of this recording, which is against the Winnipeg Jets at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And this is a big game in the sense of, well, one, the Winnipeg Jets are a very good hockey team. And with Connor Hellebuck, he's a guy that is always up there in the Vezina conversation. But also, the Lightning don't have any defensemen for this game. Cooper, I believe, said they have 5 healthy defensemen. So how they're going to play that 6th spot, I'm not 100% sure. I imagine they'll go 12 forwards this time, and one of the forwards play defense. I don't know. But the Lightning having a tough time defensively here because a lot of these guys are injured. Mikhail Sergachev, Eric Chernak, and Hayden Fleury, who's gotten a lot of credit, by the way, from the coaching staff, and he's been sticking around there for a while. So starting off with this game quickly, what do you guys expect tonight with the Lightning down some defensemen here?
You want to start off, Matt?
I mean, this is definitely going to be a tough game. I think the Lightning might, if it's not already been posted, they might start Sean Day as the 6th defenseman. I think he's up with the team right now. I thought I saw that on the Healthy Scratches last game. I could be mistaken, but I doubt any forward is going to be playing D unless we're just that strapped where he can't, play an extra player or something like that. But I do believe Fleury has been placed on the injured reserve. Maybe I think he's week to week or something like that. He might even be on LTIR for that cash strap, but I think we'll find a defenseman for tonight's game. But yeah, Winnipeg.
Myers was the one out there sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Matt. Myers was the one out there for pregame warmups this morning. I don't know if that's changed, but Myers was the 6th defenseman.
Okay, so that's probably the answer. Probably not Sean Day. So, that'd be all right. I do think the Lightning, of course, they could win all these games, even the Boston game at the end of the week. But I'm just hoping, they can stay healthy and, play some, play better and also win the game, kind of staying away from the theme of last week where you're the better team and you lose the games. Hopefully that's what we're looking forward, for this game and the games to come. Minnesota's kind of floundering out there. They don't know whether they're a good team or a bad team with their new coach. So that one's definitely a bit of a wild card of, trying to regain their footing, trying to, regain that top spot back at the top of the Atlantic. I think they still have it, but they lost a couple of games. But if that Boston game is anything like the game we got a few weeks ago, sign me up for it, man. That was electric. That was a very fun game.
Yeah, so looking here, Winnipeg is on a 2-game winning streak. Boston's on a 3-game winning streak. Minnesota's lost 2 in a row, so that's kind of nice. I don't think that we've had but like 2 winning streaks, maybe 3 this entire season. Usually it's been a win followed by a loss. So really get those points. I want to see the guys continue to play with the same attitude that they had in the Montreal game when they were heated and pissed off, because they need to get these points to keep them in it. According to the standings, they're technically got that second wild card spot, but there's teams right behind them with 3-4 games in hand. So that's not gonna be enough, and we're quickly approaching the halfway point of the season. So it's time to fire it off and get these points.
Yeah, I don't know how the Lightning got so far ahead of everybody else, but they are like 4-3 games, as you mentioned, Joe, ahead of some of these other teams.
Yeah, and on top of that, someone was telling me that the strength of schedule for the remainder of the season, we have one of the most difficult schedules leading up. So we had a whole bunch of games early, and then now the rest of them are going to be a lot harder to get points out of.
Well, and they're playing the Jets and the Bruins this week, which is, an example of that. Knowing the Lightning, they'll probably beat the Jets and the Bruins and lose to the Wild this week somehow, some way. But hopefully we come away with 6 points out of a possible 6 on this road trip. But it's going to be a tough road. It's not going to be easy for the Lightning, but maybe some of the adversity is what they need, and they can really respond to this. I'm looking for Brandon Hagel and Steven Stamkos to score a goal on this road trip. Both of them have not been able to score recently. I feel like they are due. If those guys can get going again, and taking some of the pressure off Nikita Kucherov, I think that'll help out the team a lot. But the Winnipeg and the Boston game are the two biggest on the schedule just because of the opponents that they're playing. But all important, as you mentioned, Joe, with the about hitting halfway point here, and these points are going to be crucial as we get deeper and deeper.
Also, the Minnesota game's important as well. It's the first time we see Patty and Bogosian back.
True.
First time we get to see them this year. So always a little difficult playing against old teammates like that. So hopefully we can. Well, I guess we won't send them home crying. I guess we'll leave with them crying. Okay, that's what'll happen.
Do you think Maroon will have any special chirps ready for the guys?
Oh, you know it.
Yes.
I would pay so much extra money to get a mic that's on the ice to hear what it's going to be said.
I want to hear Austin Watson and Maroon going at it. Those two would be like the entertaining chirping match. But all right, that's going to do it for us in this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe right here on YouTube or wherever you may be listening so you don't miss out on future episodes. Follow us at RBR Lightning and at RBLR Sports to keep up all to date with all of the Tampa Bay sports news and all the other podcasts that we have going on here today. And we'll see you guys.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.